Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Amma ba'd. Brothers and sisters, welcome to our weekly program, Got Questions. Alhamdulillah. With the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're able to gather here weekly and to, mashallah, be in the company of these respected shuyukh and scholars and learn from them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of them. Assalamu alaikum, Hazrat. How are you?
Walaikum salam. Alhamdulillah.
Good. I was just sharing this. So, Mufti Umar Saab mentioned to us something new that's going on. Anything that you would like to share with us before we start getting our questions? Any specific? You're sitting in the Darul Ifta in Ohio, so any questions? Anything specific that has come up recently?
Yeah, I think last week or week before that, the class I am teaching online, as I mentioned with you, and mashallah, doctors are the student in that class. So they asked, because we were in the chapter of what is called that. Even though we are in Tahara, but some Masail was regarding the human body, and so then they asked the question about the transplantation. So that was interesting thing. I studied some papers and some books about that. That was a new question over here.
Question. What was it about?
Transplantation. Human parts transplantation, like kidney and heart, and
Okay. Transplant.
Yes.
Okay.
So transplantation is not correct word.
Maybe Mufti Abdullah is the master in his English. I think transplant would be the word, but that. So what is the ruling, Mufti Umar Saab?
So basically, there are different types. Like one of them is like when you give your kidney to someone, and one liver. I think a part of liver is given by sometime it is given. And this is one scenario in which a person is alive and he gives a part of his body to someone. He donates basically. And another scenario is when you make a will that when I die, so if any part of my body can be used, it can be taken and it can be donated to someone. So the majority of the scholars, they have the opinion that one cannot donate his body parts, especially when make the will that after my death they can be given to someone. So majority of the scholars, they say that it is not allowed. And the same fatwa is about the other body parts when a person is alive. But there are some other opinions as well, like the Majmu al-Fiqh al-Islami, Jeddah, they issued a fatwa regarding that. If a person, for example, gives a part of his body which is not like on which the life of that person is based, means like if you give your one kidney, you can live with one. So in the same way, if you give a part of your liver, you can function. So they give the fatwa, if this is the situation, then a person can donate such kind of part of his body. And the second thing about what I said, that if a person makes a will that if I when I die, so my this and this part can be taken away. So they issued the fatwa about that. It is allowed with certain conditions, but the majority of the scholars, especially the scholars of subcontinent, they have the opinion that it should not be allowed, because if we allow it, it might be a commercial thing. So there are other details, but
That's really interesting, and I think things that subhanAllah, come up all the time. Hazrat, one quick question that came 2 times this week from 2 different individuals with regards to miras and inheritance, and the question was that husband and wife are co-owners of a property. They are both on the title of the house, or they are both on the name of an account, even though one partner is the provider, or a person is participating in providing for the finances of that, but both of them mutually agree upon having their names either on the account or the house itself. Is it possible for them to write a clause within their own in their wasiyat Islamic inheritance, that when one of the partner becomes deceased or passed away, only the portion from the deceased portion, meaning half of it, should be distributed, and the half that is the ownership of the other partner should not be touched? Is that something that is possible, allowed in Islam for them?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The second question, the first question should be asked is, or the first thing that would be analyzed is who's the owner of the house. Is the if you said there's both of the spouses, for example, normally, for example, the husband purchases the house and puts the wife's name there as well, but the wife is not contributing, the wife is not doing anything. So the first thing to be considered is the wife an owner, or is she just there for formalities or for legal purposes? If she is the owner, then there's no need for the husband to even mention anything. When he passes away, only his portion, his share, 50%, would be distributed, and her share would belong to her. And she would also receive a share from the husband's portion. But that's if she is an owner. If she is not an owner and the name is only there for legal purposes or for any other reason, then that such a clause cannot be made. The entire house will form as part of the estate of the husband or whoever the owner is, and will be distributed to the heirs accordingly.
Can
For
can
a
you
bank
also
account, something similar. Sometimes we have in bank accounts, the one person may add another person, but for the purpose of using, not for ownership. So in such a case, also the same ruling would apply. Nothing belongs to the wife or to the other person. It would belong to the person that owns it actually.
Can you also explain what it means by being an owner? So you said the husband and wife are there. They're both on the papers, but the husband is the actual owner, or the wife is the actual owner. Can you explain what that means?
Sometimes for legal reasons, the name is added. When we say owner, it means that both of them have equal share, or depending on the share percentage, they're both owners of it. They both have rights to it, claims to it. It's not just on paper.
From the Sharia perspective,
Mhm.
how would you? My question is, from a Sharia perspective, how do you how do you determine who an owner is, and what are the rights of the owner? Go ahead, Mufti Prab.
I was just going to ask one thing added to Mufti Abdullah Saab's, and for a little bit of clarification, was that with regards to, in usual terms, the owner would be considered as someone who is the contributor, or a person who has willingly or completely paid for something. So, for example, in this situation, one spouse was the contributing partner, but they both mutually sat in front of the attorney or the notary and said that even though only one spouse was paying for the contribution, but we willingly accept each other as have owners of this property, and we would like this to be, is it possible to have a clause like that?
So if that took place, then that's him gifting her half of the estate or half of the house. And if she accepts that and she takes possession of that, then that's fine. She would become owner of half of the house. But if it's
Jazakallah.
just a clause that's mentioned, but there was no formal gifting of the house or half of it, then
Right.
that would not count for ownership.
And a lot of time, Mufti Sahib, it happens is that people say, "Oh, when I die, I would give this portion." So the transfer of ownership has to take place before the demise, before the passing away.
Correct. Anything that's mentioned in the will, if it's mentioned to an heir, or if it's if someone makes a wasiya for an heir, then that portion or that wasiya would be invalid. Wasiya can only be made for those who are not already receiving a share by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for example, if someone makes a wasiya for his son, for his daughter, for his wife, then that would be void. We would not act upon that.
Jazakumullah khairan. Sister Noshi goes, Assalamu alaikum. Can you give? Can we give our zakat or sadaqah to Islamic school?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. you can give your sadaqah to an Islamic school, not sadaqatul fitr, but voluntary charity. You can give to Islamic school, you can give to any good cause. In terms of sadaqatul fitr, you have to give that. Sadaqatul fitr is taken out at the end of Ramadan before Salatul Eid. That has to get to the poor. Zakat has to go to one of the many categories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clarified within the Quran. Now, there are some schools in which orphans study. There are some schools in which people that don't have means, they study. The less fortunate study. I'm going to leave that to Mufti Muaz. Before he answers that, just need to understand that our zakat should be given to a masraf, a category or a place where the most people would benefit. So if there is an Islamic school in the United States that is doing well, and there are people back in our country that might not be doing well, they don't have much to eat, then it is a recommendation for myself that you look at the category and the place where your zakat would benefit more people, and it would help keep people alive instead of Islamic schools expanding or whatnot. So I'm going to let Mufti Muaz answer the other portion, in which let's just say, for example, there's orphans studying in an Islamic school. Can they play that game in which they say we accept zakat and we accept it on behalf of the orphans and the poor people in our school?
Before you pass the baton on to Mufti, I'm gonna Mufti Abdullah Sahab, I'm gonna ask you if you can a little bit further clarify on sadaqah nafila and sadaqah wajiba, just as a larger perspective of it, right? I think it would not just zakatul fitr, sadaqatul fitr, but just optional charity and mandatory charity, right? Like with regards to mannat and something that they have taken.
Yeah. So voluntary charity is something that you just want to give. You don't have to do it because you made a promise. You don't have to do it for any other reason. You're just doing it. And I just saw the comment about the seafood.
I know it's so distracting.
Distracting.
I just saw Ziabai's picture and I liked it. I think it was in Peru or me. I don't know where he was, man. Subhanallah, that food looked really, really good.
But unfortunately, only Mufti Muaz would be able to eat it, probably.
Yes. Macha Picchu or something like that. He's going there tomorrow. What is he's been enjoying his seafood. That was the seafood I was talking about. Zava, I hope you're safe and healthy in your journey. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you safe and protected, inshallah. So with regards to sadaqah wajiba and sadaqah nafila, I guess when you have an optional sadaqah and charity that has a much easier or I guess not restricted place where you can spend that money, and when it comes to sadaqah wajib or a mandatory charity, then it becomes really restricted on where you can spend that. So back to Mufti Muasa with a baton.
So can you give zakat to a school? The principle is no. A school cannot receive zakat. But as Mufti Abdullah mentioned, if there are poor students in the school, orphans, people that are eligible to receive zakah, right? The word is eligible to receive zakah, and the school has taken or has become the wakil of those poor individuals, or the school becomes a wakil, a representative of the donor, and the school now finds people that are eligible to receive and they give it to them, then that would be permissible. But in many institutes, unfortunately, even in America, most students are not eligible for zakah, and some of these schools try to play a game and try to take zakat funds. Schools can hate me for saying this, but I'm sorry, this is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we need to start being more cautious in where we're giving our zakat. Just because a school claims or a madrasa claims that they can accept zakat, it doesn't mean that they can accept zakat. Right? Just because a student claims that he's poor doesn't mean he's poor. I've seen incidents where students, mashallah, they've got expensive phones worth $800-900, but they're taking zakat funds, and many other unnecessary, non-essential properties of theirs. So things like this, they would not be eligible for zakat. So you would have to see where your zakat is being given. Just because the school claims, as I said, that they're eligible to take zakat, that doesn't mean they're eligible to take zakat. So do your due diligence. If there are reliable people that you can give your funds to and they will make sure that it goes to the hands of the poor student, then that's fine. For example, I've seen in Darul Mazadville in South Africa, they do take the zakat funds, but they make sure it touches the hands, or it goes into the hands of the poor students. And then if the poor student wants to use that to pay his fees, that's on his hand. It will be given to him and he's encouraged, hey, pay your fees with that. But the school doesn't just take it and say, oh, it's ours, or we're taking it for the poor student. That would not be fine. You'd have to have either express permission from the poor student, or the poor student will have to take possession of that and then give it to the school if it has to be used for the school.
Mufti Sahib, I remember you used a word prior to not this session, but before when we were speaking in person. There was a word that you said, zakat is, I don't know, you miss, and I know it was a really nice, but it was a really strong word that really showed how the zakat was mishandled or something like that. But I don't know, I forget, you said something, but it was a really good eye opener on how the zakat is, subhanallah, so misused in so many places. May Allah protect us, man. Subhanallah. Brother Asif Lukman asks, Salam Muftis, I have the opportunity to learn Arabic calligraphy. Is there a reward in learning it to beautifully write the Quran?
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sure, anything that's connected to the Quran is beautiful, it's rewardable. It's your love for the Quran that you're expressing. Maybe there is no set virtue, specific virtue for writing the Quran itself, but because it's part of the Quran, because you're showing, you're expressing your love for the Quran, you will definitely be rewarded for that.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Inshallah, when you're learning your calligraphy or you're done, then I'll reach out to you. I need some things made.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
You will be rewarded as well because you have the love to Quran, inshallah.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Ajib. Mufti Sahib gave fatwa. But Brother Farhan Ahmad asks, Assalamu alaikum. The category of the zakat, those whose hearts are to be reconciled. Reconciled. Mu'allafatul qulub. How can we implement?
In our time nowadays, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, in our time it's not implemented. We don't have or those are usually applicable when we have a Darul Islam, an Islamic state, and the Khalifatul Muslimin, he takes care of that, he handles that. But in our time, it would not be applicable. In our time, from the different categories, you would give it to us, just a few of them. Most of them, a lot of them are not there.
Mufti Sahib, even with regards to amilin and stuff like that, right? There has to be conditions of amilin, people who are collecting zakat, because now there are corporate six-digit salaries on just collecting zakats. And forgive me, but that's the reality, that this is the haqq of so many people across the globe who are in need. I know these brothers are doing an amazing job in collecting funds and getting it to the right individuals. But to consider it as amilin, where do we stand?
Islamically, for a person to qualify as an amil, he has to be hired by the Islamic State. If he is not hired by the Islamic State, then he would not be considered an amil. He'll be considered a volunteer. And we don't have an Islamic State, so all these organizations, welfare organizations, relief organizations that collect funds, zakat funds especially, they are not eligible to take a single cent from these zakat funds. Unfortunately, most of them do. They take 12, 13, 26% even. Local ones that we see here in New York, big ones. I remember 5, 6 years ago when I spoke to some of them, the CEO of one of the famous organizations in New York City, he was receiving $150,000 salary every year, taken from zakat funds. And that time the average salary was about 55, 60,000 only at max. So this guy was making $150,000 by running a welfare organization. So there's a lot of misuse and I don't know what other words to use of these zakat funds. So it's important that people that are giving their zakah, they consider where and how they're paying their zakah, because the validity of their zakah or their zakah will only be valid once it reaches the hands of the eligible recipients.
So if someone is looking to donate to an organization, they can do two things. Number one is you can either donate to an organization, give your zakat to an organization, welfare organization that has a 100% zakat policy. I believe Children of Adam has a 100% zakat policy, and just a handful of other welfare organizations have a 100% zakat policy, which means that 100% of the zakat that they receive is used for the correct purpose. The travel, everything in between, the transportation, the gas, everything in between is usually obviously taken out from other funds, right, Mufti Sam?
Yes, so the 100% zakat means 100% zakat for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Yes.
Okay.
Meaning there's no salaries, nothing like that taken from the money of zakat itself. All of the zakat itself, money itself, is utilized for the direct benefit of the beneficiaries who are zakat eligible.
And that's
It's
the
very,
first
very tough. It's very, very tough, subhanAllah.
because you do have to take out from operating expenses to fulfill this zakat expense, right?
Yes, yes, it's tough sometimes when you have, like, for example, we're doing a hoodie, we were doing the hoodie distributions in Afghanistan and in India. Now you have to transport those hoodies in a truck from one place to the other, and those truck drivers are working and they're not zakat eligible, or you cannot pay them for that. So you have to even factor those small little points because they all make a big difference.
Exactly. That was my point. Yeah. So alhamdulillah, you just explained it. So look for an organization that has 100% zakat policy, or the second option is whichever organization you want to donate to. You want to donate to zakat.com or whatever.com you want to donate to.
Oh, there is something like that.
I believe so. Look at their zakat policy. I believe they a lot of the websites they say that our our expenses are taken out from the zakat what is it called, from the zakat account, and it's 15 or 18% or 9% or 10%. Some people told me it's up to like 20-25%, which is ridiculous. And how much?
I've seen 26%, and these people did not mention it to anyone.
La hawla wa la quwwata
Go
illa
into
billah.
people and the insiders' information. That's when you find out 26% being taken out.
So if an organization has a 20% expense that they take out from the zakat account, you have to factor that into your zakat. If you're paying $1,000 in zakat, you would have to pay $1,000 plus 20%, because you have to factor that in. Otherwise, 20% of your zakat will be unpaid. So you have both options. The easy option is clear.
Even in such a case, I wouldn't suggest you go with these organizations. If they're not being responsible and reliable in these matters, I wouldn't trust them with my money. With all due respect to them.
And
We have
where
organizations that are 100%. Support them. Give an extra donation to them also, right? Just because, for example, Children of Adam is 100% doesn't mean you only give that. You should, on your own, try to give some more as donation to support them and to assist them in facilitating for your zakat to be reaching the eligible recipients. Right? They're doing you a favor. So try to, not just Children of Adam, but any organization that you're dealing with, try to give a bit more to make it easy for them, and not that they have to take out money from their own pockets now.
you also have to say a disclaimer. This ad is not sponsored.
It is not. It is not.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
This is not sponsored, guys. This is
Okay.
definitely not sponsored. B Meow 1314. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. I think that it's broken into two questions. I need to pay zakat for my father for qarza hasana. My family wants to donate 1,000 of the total back to the masjid. So do I minus this amount from all the years or just this year? My question is, do we minus this 1,000 for the current year or all the years? I don't get the question. I don't know if you guys get it.
No, I don't get it either. What does it mean, pay zakat for my father for qard hasana? What does that mean? Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think it might need a little bit more clarification. I need to pay zakat for my father for qarza hasana. Meaning, if someone has taken qarza hasana and they're already in debt, would they even give zakat?
That's a question.
For the clarification.
Yeah, I think let's wait for the clarification. Sister Noshi Ahmed asks, we try to give most of our zakat in month of Ramadan for more reward. Is it okay?
I think a lot of people do that. I mean, an overwhelming amount of people pay their zakat within the month of Ramadan with the intention that the month of Ramadan is a month of blessings. My good deeds will be multiplied up to 700 times, inshallah. So I'm going to try to do all the good within the month of Ramadan. So there's a few things to look at. Number one is, when was the first time your zakat date came around? When was the first time zakat became fard on you? If it was in Muharram, then you cannot switch that date to the month of Ramadan. The second thing that we look at, what I mean by date is the date of calculation, not the date of paying it exactly, the date of calculation. The second thing that we look at is if it's always been the month of Ramadan, you can keep it the month of Ramadan, but you have to specify a specific date. If you've always been doing it the first of the month of Ramadan, then do it on the first, do the calculation on the first of the month of Ramadan. And then in terms of payment, you can pay that throughout the entire year until the next cycle comes in, but you should pay it as soon as possible. So if you calculate on Ramadan first $1,000 of zakat, you can pay that within the first day, within 5 minutes, or you can spread that out through 1 month, or you can spread that out through the entire year. Whatever you think it will be more beneficial to the people receiving zakat would be better. So if you know that there's a certain person that you give that you give money to, and they are zakat eligible, and they need it on a monthly basis, if you give it to them all at once, they're going to blow it. Then maybe keeping some zakat for them on a monthly basis would be beneficial. So this is different options. But in terms of date of calculation, you can there's the thing is that if your date of calculation was a different date other than Ramadan, then you have to keep that. You cannot switch your date of calculation. But if you've always been calculating the first of Ramadan, then obviously it's going to be difficult to backtrack and see when it was. So you can simply do the first of Ramadan or whichever date of Ramadan that you would calculate on. And then in terms of payment of zakat, you can do that whenever before your next zakat calculation date.
So, Mufti Wasab, you were going to say something?
Adding on to that, if your zakat date is some other time, for example, maybe in Rajab or Sha'ban or any other month besides Ramadan, but you want to give it in Ramadan, you can still do that. This would be an advance payment, but you should, when the date comes itself, recalculate your wealth and see how much was given and how much was remaining. If you gave less, then give the difference. And if you paid more, then consider it as nafil, or you can count it as zakah for the following year.
So better to set one specific lunar calendar date to be the date of your zakat.
Not better, necessary.
Necessary to set one specific lunar calendar date as that, and then a person may give it whenever appropriate or needed, but they would have to audit themselves with the entire wealth on that specific date to see how much they have to give. I think this is the brother or sister gave a clarification. Say it again, Musab. Sorry.
Choosing the date is only for those who don't recall what their exact zakat date was.
Right.
If someone recalls their zakat date, or they become, they reach a zero again, and then they restart their thing, then the first time they receive nisab would be their zakat date.
I think it's important that maybe, Musab, if your time allows, both of you, Hazrat, maybe in March, before April, before Ramadan, we can do like a zakat workshop, maybe like a town hall.
I think we should do it in all three masjids, if the third masjid allows it. Inshallah, inshallah, Selden should be good. I think ICLI should be good as well.
Let's do it.
We can like rotate masjids and we can do something like that. We'll talk about it.
Hamza or somewhere else. Let's do it. All the masjids. We can do it in few masjids. Inshallah.
All the masjids. What are we on tour?
Let's do it. I think so. I think let's do it.
Zakat tour and take a fee for Amilin.
Oh man. So the question clarified here. So the question is, someone wrote, my dad passed away. The qarza hasana has been 10 years so far to a masjid. So the father gave qarza hasana to a masjid. I was told zakat has to be paid on this. We weren't sure if he paid. So we want to pay all the years. Okay, now it makes a little sense.
Okay, so we understand that it's been 10 years since your father gave the qard, the loan to the masjid, and he passed away recently. So these 10 years were during his lifetime. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him Jannatul Firdaus. So that money was zakatable. If he didn't give zakat, then yes, you would have to backdate the zakat for all the years. All 10 years you would pay zakat for the amount. But if it was paid, then you don't have to pay it. If you're not sure, then the better thing to do would be to give sadaqah or pay the zakat again. In the event that he already paid and this is an additional amount, then it would count as nafl for him. But this is if you have a dominant feeling that it's not, it wasn't paid. If the chances are, possible chances are he did pay it, then you shouldn't pay it from the zakat funds, from his wealth, rather from your own personal wealth.
Subhanallah. Jazakumullah khair. The statement already came. Don't forget Hamza, please. We got it. Inshallah. We'll consider that as Mufti Muazzab's local area because
Yo,
that's near him or something. Oh man. But Saad Khanzada asks, Salam, I currently live with my parents. I have very little money at this time, not enough to be independent, but I have a small amount of money in my bank. Do I need to pay zakat on it?
Depends on how much money you have, right? So many people have this notion that I'm not working, so I don't pay zakat. Or I'm not independent, I'm not living alone, I don't pay zakat. Zakat is due on any baligh person that possesses the minimum nisab threshold, which I believe is about 400 something dollars today, right? If you have that much money, whether it be in cash, uh, crypto, savings, bank account, any investments, then you have to pay zakat on that. Right? Most people actually qualify for this. Most people in America have $400 or $500 lying around, or they have that much cash with them. Right? Even the change that you have in your car, those quarters that you have to pay the meter, that is calculated in the zakat as well. So if you have the nisab threshold, I'm not exactly sure the exact value today,
456.16.
$456.16. If you have that much, Islamically, you're considered rich, and you have a right on you, or you have a responsibility on you to assist those who are less fortunate than you. And it's not much, right? 456.16. It's only 2.5% of that. So if you have $500, only 2% of that. It's very small, a very limited amount.
Subhanallah. Jazakallah khair and Jazakallah khair. Oh, the question is if my family wants to do, is that a follow-up question or is this the same question? The follow
I think it's a follow-up question. We didn't answer that.
If my family wants to donate $1,000 and the total amounts, so I minus this from the year or the total. So if he's passed on already and the family wants to donate this from the estate, then you would have to see a few things. Is every single person from the heirs willingly giving that away? If they are willingly and happily giving it away from the estate, then that's fine. But if one person objects, then you cannot give it from the estate. Everyone or whoever wants to, they can give it from their own wealth, from their own money.
Meaning the zakat has to be given no matter what, whether people agree or not.
If it's
But
unpaid,
the voluntary charity has to be agreed upon.
yes, by every single person. And if from amongst the heirs there are any non-baligh children, then their consent would not be permissible or not be valid. You would have to give that amount of the portion that you're deducting. You'd have to give it to that child.
Jazakallah khair. What if I qualified for zakat but missed the 1 year date but can still give the zakat late? Am I still sinful? I just found out this right now.
You qualify for the zakat date, meaning you had zakat, you had enough money on your zakat date. If that's the case, then yes, you would give it. The zakat doesn't just fall off because you didn't pay, but it remains outstanding until your death and even after that. So whenever you get the chance, or now you give it away, and you give that amount in zakah, and you make istighfar. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. You didn't know.
Okay, do we minus the 1,000 from the 10 years or just this year? So that, I believe they're trying to ask, can we take $1,000 out, give it to the masjid, and then on the remaining we want to calculate zakat? If that's the question, then no, you cannot deduct the 1,000 voluntary charity that you want to give to the masjid from the calculation that you will make of zakat. You will calculate the zakat. Sorry, go ahead.
The question says they want to donate 1,000 back to the masjid from the qarz hasana, meaning the amount that was loaned, they want to give $1,000 to the masjid. So that amount now cannot be given immediately unless there's, as we said, consent of every single heir, provided that there are no minors. In regards to zakat, that 1,000 will still be calculated in the zakat, because the intention is not from the person, or it wasn't given away in the lifetime of your father. So you would consider that, or you would include that in the zakat calculation.
So, Brother Khan, Saad writes, Zakat very informative. Current number is 456. Yes, that's for today. It fluctuates every day, right? That fluctuates every day. So it goes, if someone owes us money and they don't pay, do we pay zakat?
If someone owes you money, then there are two things you can do. You can pay it annually, or you can pay it once you receive the money and then backdate it. So there are a few types of debts. I don't think we have time for that now. But simply put, you can either pay it on a yearly basis, or you can hold on to it till you receive it. And when you receive it, then you backdate it for all the years that you had to pay it.
Hmm. That's amazing. Mufti Abdullah Sahab, what would be a good time for you? Friday, Saturday for Selden to do a zakat workshop in March.
So I'm gonna be back like
Let's
March
let's let's
12th.
let's let's run some numbers and see when we can do it. Inshallah, we'll do it in all the masjids. Inshallah,
Yeah, definitely, inshallah.
as
Let's
many as we can.
combine a few.
Combine a few, yes, inshallah. So I guess this is khair. A lot of questions zakat because Ramadan is coming close. MashaAllah, people have a lot of concerns and questions as well. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept, inshallah. Or maybe we can just do the FAQ with regards to Ramadan as well. A lot of time people have questions with, injections or IVs or with diabetics and eye
So both.
drops, ear drops.
Sorry. So both. So within one workshop we have zakat and the fiqh of fasting.
So Sudoshi is ahead of all of us. She's like, when can we schedule Hamza Bashir? She's on it. Inshallah, I'm gonna call you tomorrow and schedule it. Inshallah, whenever it works for all. When Mufti Abdullah Sahab, he might be traveling for a bit. Once he's we're all together, and we can get a commitment from few more. Inshallah, we'll take care of it. Inshallah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah reward you guys and elevate you in this life with afiyah and akhirah. May He grant you barakah with afiyah in your affairs and accept you for His khidmat. Ameen. Ameen. And she goes, Jazakallah. So we'll coordinate with Hamza tomorrow, inshallah, and finalize. With this, Jazakumullah khairan hazrat, and thank you so much, brothers and sisters, for joining us. May Allah bless you and reward you. Please keep us in your dua, and inshallah, we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yo, we're all wearing black.